G'day everyone, welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to get into something that's been puzzling me, and I think I got one potential answer to what's going on. And the thing is, how do we explain the inconsistent quality of the stones of Stonehenge? And I think we can explain this by saying that there were a succession of previous monuments which were recycled, and the final monument down here is actually what it really is. It was built by people who did not carve the stone, so it was rearranged, and that's what happened. And we're going to look into this. Okay, now as we see, there are a succession of buildings. Initially there was a rectangle built, a rectangle of stones here, but there was no rectangular building. And then there was a horseshoe of blue stones brought. I think these are the ones which were brought from Ireland. I think they were mined in Wales, then brought to Ireland, and then from Ireland brought to Britain. That would be consistent with the legends. And then of course we have this Sarsen circle, and the Sarsen circle is consistent with what we have in the Mediterranean. It's a Mediterranean type structure with pillars and columns and things. This is more what we find in Britain. The circular building is also a British thing. The idea of a rectangular structure is rather interesting. I think these were taken out of a rectangular structure and made into a circular structure which is similar to a stupa by people following a type of Asiatic temple religion, Celts, essentially coming from the east. And if you don't believe me that Celts could come from the Far East, these are the Aryans, essentially. They went all the way to Ireland and bring an Asiatic religion. Look no further than the hill of Tara, where you have this Shiva Linga. And you can talk to this thing, and if it whispers to you and tells you you're the next king of Ireland, you're in luck. And Robert Temple wrote this is a brilliant book, Egyptian Dawn. It's one of my favourite ancient mysteries books because it is just so good, so interesting. And he says the ancient race responsible for travelling around, they could have been the Viracochas, he doesn't go into that, but responsible for travelling around building Stonehenge in Britain are the Libyans, quote unquote. And they were pressing up against Egypt, they could have founded Egypt. And in ancient Libya we have this. Robert Temple found these pictures in a book called Hill of Graces, and I wrote an Amazon review about this. The name is so unfortunate that Stonehenge scholars have ignored this book. I mean, if it had been called, Trithalons in Asia or something, Stonehenge authors would have known about it. And because they didn't know about this book, every Stonehenge book that's been written is lacking information. It's lacking the worldwide component to Stonehenge. And this is the book I photographed in the State Library with an older mobile phone. And you see it's a very old book. It's from the early part of the 20th century. And look at this picture here. We'll get to that. There we go. Now you tell me that wasn't built by the Stonehenge builders, but you look at what's going on. The long grass. Yep, it's in Africa. How bizarre! And also they're all aligned. They're all lined up. It's a straight. It looks like it's a rectangular temple. And this is the prototype to all the Egyptian temples, all the Greek temples. Roughly hewn rocks. And again, they used to think these olive presses or something. I don't know how that can work as an olive press. I'm not sure. And as for this, it might not be around anymore. It might have been quarried. And more of this stuff. Who knows what it was. And the building I find so similar to Stonehenge is this Temple of Heaven in Beijing. And it is just incredible. I think these things here, I'll just, let's just make that smaller, and I'm going to bring up another picture of Stonehenge with the Aubrey rings. And I think here you have what is Stonehenge, but it's been internalized, and it's a building. It's covered over, and there are lintels. There are actually lintels on the inside, but it's level upon level. and here you have 3 outer rings, and it's just like Stonehenge. You have 3 outer rings of holes. So you have the Z holes, the Y holes, and then you have the Aubrey holes. And I think they say these didn't hold posts. I think they were for placing little Buddha statues or something. And I'm talking not about Gautama Buddha, but that fat laughing Buddha who is an earth god who is very ancient. Okay, so it's thousands of years before Gautama. So these could have been done by Buddhists from Asia, and they took an earlier monument in Britain and they rearranged the stones into a Buddhist type stupa. They also went to China, and that's again what I'm talking about. These 3 levels. It's almost like that enormous pyramid stupa in Indonesia, with the millions of little pillars around it. You see, that's what I think these were for, placing little statues. I don't see what else they could be for. They weren't really used for anything else except burials in later times. And they say they weren't used for posts. They have this geophysics equipment, they check it, and that's what they say. Hey, that's what they say. And that's the internal structure of the Temple of Heaven. And so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's almost like there's an internal trilithon area, and these are lintels used in sacred architecture in China. And here you have curved lintels, just like the curved lintels of the Sazan Circle on Stonehenge. So they actually were using a similar type of building technique to the builders of Stonehenge. I think it was basically the same people, really, except this is a wooden building. And it's done very differently. Aachen Cathedral could have, the dome could have replaced another Stonehenge. It's much the same thing. It's a multi-level dome, and several authors have noted. In particular, one very good author. His name is John Mitchell. I think it's in this book, The View Over Atlantis. He actually says that Aachen is the same dimension as Stonehenge, and several other authors have said that as well. So it's replaced a type of Stonehenge. And in Ireland we have a lot of this stuff, and they look like Stonehenges, these doorways. So it's a similar type of building technique. And even that Inca shaped look, doorway of temple, they even call them churches temples. Temple Kemame in Aran with sloped sides, just like the Incas did. And here we have a map of the whole Stonehenge area, and here is the cursor, so Stonehenge is down here, but Durrington Walls, they found this goes back to 9000 BC, basically. It's a Mesolithic site. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable antiquity. And so what I'm showing you is it's been recycled and recycled and recycled for 10,000 years. So even before Stonehenge 1, here, look, there were actually, the car park is over here, the old car park. There were totem poles placed here in 8000, 9000 BC. They carbon dated the holes in the car park. There were at least 2 of them, possibly 3, in some kind of alignment. So this site is incredibly ancient. And you know, showing where the holes of the possibly the statues were, or the bigger building. Who knows? Who knows? And look, these are the sloping doorways, but they're sort of inverse almost. You have to turn them upside down. Instead, the slopes are on this angle. You see, which is quite interesting. Almost like you're walking into the stones. The stones themselves are the doorways. So it's rather interesting. But it's a similar thing. If you invert that picture, you'll see it looks like they look like Inca doorways. So they could have been similar builders. And in fact, the fact that we don't see anything else like Stonehenge in Britain shows us that it was foreigners going to Britain, setting up their civilization and building this here. But in a British style, a circular style, unlike the style of that building in Africa. And these are photos I took when I went to Stonehenge in 2012. Basically, you have to follow this path, and I'm just going to show you that the quality of the stones is absolutely inconsistent, which proves that the entire structure was not built by the people who carved the stones, because they just used whatever they had lying around. If they had designed the whole thing from scratch, all the stones would have been of consistent quality, and I think that explains why it's such a higgledy-piggledy mess. For example, you look over here, especially this thing here, this huge trilithon, it's so perfect, these things are perfect, and over here they use just whatever. You see, they've plonked that on top. It doesn't look good, it doesn't fit. And you see, there's lots of attempts to carve, recarve, do things to Stonehenge. It's so hard to tell what was originally going on, but you see the quality is odd. I mean, this block is placed here with not much room placed for another block. Was there really even another block placed there? Look, there's no room for it. What's going on? And you see so many anomalies in Stonehenge which don't make sense. This could be from another perspective. Look, these are the trilithons in the centre. Do you know how tall these are? This is, if you were 6 foot, you'd come up to about there. That's how tall these things are. They're absolutely enormous. And that's the infamous block which cannot be explained. But over here is something which really cannot be explained. Why is this trilithon so perfect? They've even lined that up to the edge perfectly. It is so amazingly well done. That is flush, very nice. That is very nice. And you look at the other trilithons, they are nothing like this. Over here are a couple blue stones. They look the same colour as sarsen, but when you pour water on them, they turn blue. In fact, they're a similar stone. And again, you see the inconsistent quality of the stones. So that one is really good. And these ones here are just a mess. This thing is a mess compared to that. Why? Well, I think they started with the best stones they had lying around. And this was built by invaders coming from Asia. Redheads coming from Asia, or someone coming from Asia and wanting to build a circular temple like the one in China, like the circular temples in Asia. It's no coincidence that Asia and Britain make circular temples. It's a common lineage. In fact, China itself was founded by, if you look at their old mummies, they're basically blondes and redheads. Again, weird, inconsistent quality. The sarsen circle. These lintels are apparently curved. Or are they? Are they really curved? I'm not quite sure. They say they are, but the fact is there's only a few of them. So did they even go all the way around in ancient times? Or was this just a horseshoe formation because horseshoes are lucky, I guess? It's something sacred about it. I think it was all from a recycled rectangular structure. I'll get to that. Look, you know me, I'm trying to provide evidence for everything I say. Everything. Everything. I'm not just saying stuff. Again, the blue stones, they do look like sarsen stones, but I think they're probably from Ireland. Again, look at that. This is ridiculous. A very thin upright here, and then this. And then there's a little nub for another stone to be placed on top and not move around, hopefully. I think these were all taken from a large rectangular building which was then converted by invaders into this building. But the rectangular building was placed somewhere a little off this site, so that's why the geophysics hasn't found the holes where they were placed. Again, it looks incredibly arcane, weird and ancient, and there's a lot of photos. I'll just skip through. Oh, by the way, there are some interesting things going on here. With some of the blue stones are very well done. Look, there's a little notch in this. There's a little recess, and there's something going on here. This was used to slide into another component in this blue stone, and that structure, that idea, has not survived in the rest of the structure, showing it's been recycled from something else, or something else is going on that we do not understand. Somewhere is the altar stone, which another block is lying on top of it. I'm not sure where, and that's made out of a sort of white stone. I'm not sure if it's in any of my photos. It's kind of hard. These are all done by telephoto lens because you actually can't get too close to it. There's people there with walkie-talkies, and you don't want to get on their bad side, I guess. Again, this is the ditch around Stonehenge here. And we're on a hill because you can see a great way around you because this is aligned with ley lines. It makes a perfect equilateral triangle with Old Sarum and Groverley Castle. Okay, I'm going to skip through a little faster because I've covered this, and we're going to get to the heart of the matter. Again, the inconsistency. Okay, let's skip through. I love that photo. Again, you see, it's just different blocks, and they've been made to fit, really. This is really the telephoto lens here. You see, I've got close-ups. The barrows nearby. More photos than I thought. But we're going to get into why I think this was a rectangular structure. By the way, there's some kind of, did you see that? There's some kind of strange graffiti here. It looks like an axe head or something. People haven't noticed that one. Or it's a repair. Okay, there we go. Look, this is something that looks like Stonehenge all by itself in Yorkshire, the root stone monolith. Newgrange. Okay, now, again, you see the inconsistency, that tiny little thing on top of the huge stones. Okay, now, let's get into this. They're all modelled on a tomb, so Stonehenge is modelled partly on a circular tomb, or like something from Malta. And again, look, this is so much like Stonehenge, but it's a linear, long wall. And now we come to this. Look, this has enshrined a rectangular sort of pattern. Look at this. Stonehenge is on a perfect latitude where if you make a rectangle, you can point to the most southerly moonrise, the summer solstice sunrise, the winter solstice sunset, the winter solstice sunset. This is not a rectangle if you change the latitude. These guys chose the latitude so they could place a rectangle here. I believe it's to enshrine a previous structure which was rectangular to commemorate it. When they changed it to a circular structure, or they left these alone, they altered their original intention, I'm not sure. There was no rectangular structure here because there's no holes, but I think this must be somewhere nearby. There must be a rectangular structure. The stones were taken from that structure and placed here. And how do we know this? Well, I've shown you that the stones are of inconsistent, absolutely inconsistent quality, and they've just used what they've got. Now, this is a brilliant book here. Look, it's called Ancient Infrastructure. It is such a good book. Get this book. And it talks about Stonehenge's remarkable rectangle. But a few pages later, it also talks about stone rectangles in France, in Brittany, even in South America. They built rectangular stone rectangles. Okay, they didn't just build stone circles, they built stone rectangles. So I ask you, if there is a stone rectangle